Thanks, Roche. Well, wonderful that we can share some time this morning as a Sangha, sitting, service, a little bit of hopefully inspiration through some Dharma teaching. Really a precious way. I understand we have so many choices, don't we, in our life. We can do so many things. So the fact that all of you have chosen to come in, I think, is wonderful. It's a real joy. So today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite practices, Lojong. And the talk is titled Practical Lojong. And it's only titled that way because when I'm asked what's the title of your talk, I never really know. So I'm like, Practical Lojong, that sounds good. So let me start with a basic premise of Buddhism. Lojong in particular, Buddhism in general. And I want you to think for a moment if this rings true for you. Personally, if this rings true for you. Everybody has the same basic wish in life. Everybody. And that wish is to be happy and to avoid pain and difficulties. That's the teaching right there, quite honestly. That is the basic premise that our practices are founded on. We all have, and all of us sitting here, all of us online, all of us in Oak Park, no one is exempt from this wish, including animals and insects. Everyone has the same basic wish, to be happy, to be peaceful, to be content, and to not have difficulties. To not have pain and challenges. If we really deeply and profoundly believed this wish, how would our lives change to reflect that? That's what our Buddhist practices are always asking us to do. Not to just chew it intellectually and walk out thinking, oh, that was great, I really love that. And then what do we do with it? So Lojong practice in particular is reminding us that this wish is also a very, very powerful means to equalize self with others. And what does that mean? It means everybody's equal. We may look different, we may have different positions of power, status, money, attraction, where we live, what our backgrounds are. It all gets equalized in the field of Dharma. Everyone has the same basic wish, including animals, including insects, to be happy, to be peaceful, and to avoid pain. So, because we haven't really internalized it or deepened it, we devote our life to the opposite. We devote our life to gathering as much as we can to feel content and happy. We spend a lot of time and energy improving the externals in our life, right? A lot of time and energy improving the externals. Different jobs, different relationships, different clothes, different cars, different food, more money, bigger house, smaller house, getting rid of some stuff, acquiring more. So if we truly believed this, the basic wish, I wish to be happy and peaceful and avoid suffering, what's going to bring me to that conclusion? What's going to bring me to that experience? It's certainly not going to be in the material pursuits, is it? It's not going to be in just, remember that old saying, he who dies with the most toys wins? I think a part of me still believes that. I don't know. So if we think for a minute how quickly we're undone when something goes wrong, and you can see this with kids. they're profound teachers that, you know, they build a beautiful thing in the sand. You go to the beach, it's a beautiful day. They build stuff with their sand toys, and then a big wave hits, or a sibling, you know, enacts some kind of destruction on it, and it's gone, right? And they are profoundly unhappy. And Buddha said, we are like children. We do the same exact thing. Maybe we don't throw hissy fits and tantrums anymore. Or maybe we do, right? Maybe we do in our own way. So what has this result been of just following these external pursuits and situations? What is our result? We need to ask ourselves that question. Are we happier? Are we more content? Can we maintain a peaceful, stable mind in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of adversity? So generally instead of fulfilling the wish, what happens is our happiness and peace decreases and our misery and suffering increases. So what is the conclusion that we're being asked to draw? Happiness and suffering do not come from the outside. It's our state of mind. It's our attitude. It's the quality of our heart, the openness. And if we don't feel that deeply, we will continue to rearrange things in our external world. If we don't deeply experience this teaching, this particular teaching is meant to overcome what they call in Buddhism mistaken view. A mistaken view are the views that lead us to suffering. They don't tend towards liberation. They lead us to suffering. So this basic premise, all beings wishing for happiness and avoiding pain. And we can apply it when you watch news on TV. Wishing for happiness, avoiding pain and suffering. So because we're so wrapped up in the way that we see this world, and the pleasure that we have gotten from external pursuits, we can also understand it's very momentary, isn't it? Pleasure is momentary, transitory.
I think looking at it, and I read the book, Why Buddhism is True, on evolutionary psychology, and basically that fleeting contentment and fleeting happiness is not a bug, it's a feature. It's designed to get us to go out and keep the species alive.
Yeah, right.
Don't
right.
fall asleep after a meal because you're going to get eaten.
Right.
So
right.
we have to understand that our happiness is our responsibility. It's not coming from any external.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Daigo. So the conclusion we should be drawing is that we need a true method to achieve stability in our mind and heart. The stability of peace, the stability of compassion. If we look now, it's growing and it's expanding. For all of us, it's growing and expanding. But our Dharma practice gives us an opportunity to stabilize that. And for that to be our life. That's what arises naturally and spontaneously. We don't have to call it up. We don't have to think, well, this is a situation that I should show a little bit of compassion, right? We don't have to call that up. It's just part of who we are. So we can express it genuinely and authentically. So, you know, Mahayana teachers have said over the centuries that as practitioners, we do all sorts of stuff. We engage in a lot of avoidant techniques, don't we? To escape unpleasantness. Whether it's a person, whether it's a situation, whether it's something at work, something in our neighborhood, something at home. So, and we can try that for a while. We can try to avoid things, people, situations. But you know what we can never avoid? Ourselves, right? we bring our mind everywhere we go. So if it's unhappy, if it's unsettled, that experience unfolds in the midst of whatever else is going on. If we're peaceful and stable and are speaking with kindness, that experience also unfolds wherever we are, whoever we're with. So I really want you to try to contemplate this premise. It is a seminal teaching in Buddhism, and it underlies Lojong practice. Because if we're more interested in finding happiness from some outside source, we will not have the same kind of determination and motivation to make these very deep-seated changes that we need, that will change our experiences and our perspectives. Because we know we all have attitudes of varying degrees. And Lojong is saying, people, you need an attitude adjustment. Very significant attitude adjustment. So let's think for a moment about the true source of problems and the true source of happiness. Everything that we would label a problem, a difficulty, whether it's grand or whether it's slight, comes from an uncontrolled mind. And an uncontrolled mind starts to look for ways that it can express itself. And then we have unskillful actions, speech, because the mind is uncontrolled. The mind is just working for our own benefit, everyone else be damned. And maybe we don't have that thought going into an interaction or an encounter, but that's how strong, that's how the habitual tendency of ego focus and ego wishes are always operating, always operating. So if we clearly resolved for ourselves that all of my problems are coming from a mind that is not trained, a mind that is not controlled, would we develop a little bit more motivation to get it under control, to tighten up the reins? Norman Fisher in his book, this is a phenomenal book and we're going to use it during Ongo. Norman Fisher has a beautiful book called Training in Compassion, Zen Teachings on the Practice of Lojong. Because Lojong is not particular to Zen. Lojong is a Tibetan practice, primarily. But Zen practitioners, of course, are welcome to it. there's no, picking or choosing, if you will. So Norman Fisher has adapted many of the teachings in this beautiful, beautiful book on Lojong. And he said, our default untrained mind is not very inspiring, right? Right? Our default untrained mind, the mind that just acts out, the mind that says things that's very unskillful, the mind that feels selfish, that feels distant from others, it's not very inspiring, but it's our default mind. Because that's what we know, and that's what we have been practicing for eons and eons. That's what we've been practicing. We have been trying to fulfill ego's desires. So we practice that. So thinking about, to hear someone say, well, your default untrained mind isn't very inspiring, we might take some offense at that. Like, well, what do you mean? I think I say clever things. I have a lot of information. It's really not very inspiring, right? So more is possible in our life. That's what Dharma is holding out to us. More is possible. You don't have to just put up with this unskillful, untrained mind. You don't have to put up with all the anger and greed and selfishness and isolation and separation. It's coming from uncontrolled mind. So we have to reflect on what peace means. Each one of us, make up your own definition. What's peacefulness to you? What's it like when you feel peaceful? How do you feel? How does that change the tenor of your relationships, of your work, of your environment? What is peace? We think it's a temporary cessation of some sort of suffering. Relief. I don't have that headache anymore. Relief. But true peacefulness in Buddhist teachings is not a temporary cessation from the suffering. It's a permanent cessation from suffering. It's something that just is. Just is. Can you feel deep contentment? Do you want to feel deep contentment all the time? This is the teaching Buddha gave us in the beginning. This is what's possible. Do you believe it? Number one. Think about it, test it out, reflect on it. Because when you conclude, yes, your practice will take on a different form and structure. I guarantee it. Your practice will be different.
What is contentment?
What is contentment? I mean, we all have to answer that question, what it feels like. You know, Buddhist teachings would say it's freedom from that constant agitation of attachment and aversion. The mind that's always picking and choosing, yes, no, in, out, this, that, is not content. It's unsettled. When you're unsettled, you're not peaceful, right? Even if you go on the most beautiful vacation, the mind can sometimes feel unsettled and a little worried. Like, well, what should I do next? What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do tomorrow? Right? That's not contentment. We can even be sitting watching the most beautiful sunset, and our mind can still be like, oh, should I answer those emails? No, I can wait time alone. Ooh, did I print out my tickets to leave? The unsettled, that chronic dis-ease, discontent is not contentment. It's not peacefulness. Do we think it's possible? Yes. Please say yes. Yes. Come on. It's a Buddhist survival, right? Yes. Yes, no, that's it.
Of course, Diane, of course.
Thank
Can I have a witness?
Question. So what I struggle with contentment, that word is often things that are really important for me to do are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
A conversation, or doing something new, or learning something new. I don't feel contented. I feel discomfort, yet it's something I strive to do.
Yes.
I feel like I need to.
Yes. Well, then open up the possibility, Robert, that you could be doing something that is not in your comfort zone, but you could also be doing it with equanimity and with peacefulness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the teachings are holding out to us. So it's not saying life will always go your way, but Lojong is saying when it doesn't, you can still maintain this equanimity and this peacefulness. That's what it's offering to us.
For me, it's almost reversed. I find that one of the things that's led to my growing sense of contentment is in fact a sense of purpose to do the things that I may not want to do. But if I do those things, then I don't have that literal dis-ease of, okay, if I did the things, I can stop thinking about it. So for me, that sense of purpose, and we even talked about that in a class yesterday, that even if you're doing something you don't like, if you're focused on it, you are happier, regardless of how pleasant or unpleasant the task is. So,
And I would argue that even if you're doing something you don't like, a touch of aversion is still present in your mind.
say that again.
Even if you're doing something that you don't like or you do like, there is still a layering of aversion and attachment that's present. So Lojong, the possibility of peace is peace without attachment and aversion. Gone. So there's an important teaching on emptiness that's part of the Lojong practice, which is the world is upside down. The world is upside down. And why? What does that mean? Because the world that appears to us very vividly and very real is not the actual way that it is. That's what the teachings on emptiness are starting us to consider. What's appearing to our senses, what's appearing to mind, what's appearing to taste, touch, smell, sight, is a construct, is a collection of causes and conditions that are appearing in this particular way. So the world is upside down means that what we're seeing, thinking, doing, it's according to our fixed notions. It's according to our projections. It's according to our mental constructs. That's not the way that the world really is. I mean, and think about if you went to see a magician. Buddhism often uses this story, this analogy. You know, that magicians create illusions, right? And they look so real. But if you were to see an apparition of a lion or tiger, you don't go running out of the room or the hall because you know it's not real. You know that the way that it appears is not the way that it really is. So you can be content to sit there and to watch. That's our life, right? Illusions are appearing and disappearing, appearing and disappearing. We're not content to just sit there and watch it with equanimity, with compassion, with kindness, with stability. No, we're reacting, with fear, with anxiety, with depression, with escape. So the Heart Sutra is asking us, question everything. Is this so? Who's thinking this? Who's saying this? Question this. So there's a famous story about a Chinese Zen master, and his nickname was Bird's Nest Roshi. And Bird's Nest Roshi meditated at the top of a very tall tree. That was his practice. And a government official one day came by and was underneath the tree and looked up at Bird's Nest Roshi and said, "What are you doing? That's so dangerous. Why are you meditating like that? Why are you engaged in this practice?" And Bird's Nest Roshi said, "You call this dangerous? The practices you engage in are far more dangerous. You ignore impermanence, you ignore no true self, you ignore suffering, and you live your life based on what you think is permanent, a pursuit of our own happiness, and that we can avoid suffering." So Bird's Nest Roshi said, doing what you're doing is far more dangerous. Ignoring the teachings, ignoring the way that they affect your life and affect your relationships. So Zen is asked again and again, and I think Norman Fisher says, Lojong is a perfect practice for Zen because it takes into account a very commonplace simplicity. We like simplicity, don't we? Sometimes we make it more complicated than it needs to be. It's quite simple.
No.
Okay, or not.
I mean, because complexity for me, is like a way of not thinking about my own imagination of how things are. When I start to try to think about complexity and systems, how they look, how they work, even in the phenomenon world, I find it restful in a way.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm saying, yeah, we like simplicity, but if you flip that on its head, I'm not arguing, I'm just thinking.
Sure.
Complexity to me is a way for me to get away from being overly simple. Because I start thinking about all the relationships and all the, it's like dwelling in possibility. So I don't like complication. Like, yeah, but complexity in itself because of the flow and because of the interactions of all, and that works on a quantum mechanical level or ecological level or whatever, is a different thing altogether. Maybe I'm just quibbling with word choice.
Well, and maybe part of what simplicity is not having to think about everything so much.
Thank you.
So let's look a little bit at the lineage and the quality of these instructions, because I think what Tibetan Buddhism always sets up is if we're going to practice something wholeheartedly, we want to be sure that it's going to work, right? That it's coming from an authentic teacher, teachings, lineage of instruction. And Lojong certainly is. Lojong's been around over 1,000 years. I'm not making it up. I'm not sharing anything of my own thought. So it's important to consider the advantages, the benefits of engaging in these practices. With all of our teachings, it's important to consider advantages and benefits, because that gives us more motivation and inspiration to do it. Gives us more joy. We put forth the effort. You can talk about something all day long, but unless you're actually doing it from the heart, it'll never change something in your life or mind. So the set of Lojong instructions that Norman Fisher translated, that it came about 1,000 years ago from a 10th, 11th century Buddhist master called Atisha. And initially the teachings were only available through a secret lineage, meaning not everybody had access to these teachings, because they felt that most practitioners needed some degree of intention and faith in order to be able to engage with the teachings. So it was a secret lineage. And then one day, and it was an oral transmission, so nothing was written down for a long, long time, until Geshe Chekawa, a Tibetan master who was studying Lojong instructions, decided to teach the instructions to a group of lepers in Tibet. And his brother happened to overhear the teachings, and his brother had absolutely no interest in Dharma and absolutely no faith in Dharma. Geshe Chekawa couldn't teach him a thing. He wasn't interested, he had no faith. But he overheard. And as he overheard, sorry, let me just silence my alarm. Keep going off. So as his brother heard, what Geshe Chekawa noticed was his behavior started to change. He became less foul-mouthed. He became a little gentler and kinder. So Geshe Chekawa decided, wow, if these teachings can work for someone that initially had absolutely no faith or desire to learn Dharma or practices, then maybe they shouldn't be secret anymore. And he brought them forth, and they started compiling them, and they started writing them down, they started making them available. And now, we don't have to go too far to get them, right? We don't have to cross the Himalayas, for sure. So it's right in the palm of our hand. So Geshe Chekawa described and compared these teachings to three very important qualities. He said, the teachings on Lojong are like an indestructible diamond. They're like the sun, and they're like a medicinal tree. So this part of the talk is my sales pitch for Lojong. Daigo appreciate marketing and sales. So we know a diamond. You can have a really big rock on your hand or finger, and it's worth something. But you can also have a little small facet, and it's also worth something. Whether you engage wholeheartedly or you engage according to your capacity, it's up to you, but they're still valuable. And it's compared to the sun because the sun dispels darkness. Full bright sun reaches everything and everywhere. Even a few small rays dispel some darkness, give some warmth. And then the medicinal tree is every aspect of it can cure illness, right? We know this, people that study plant medicine. Every aspect is worthwhile. We get to decide how much of it we want, how much of it we want to partake in. We get to choose. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it sort of. I'll do it every so often. I don't want to do it at all. It's completely up to us. So the teachings of Lojong help us gain the insights of Buddha and apply them to our life, right? They're not esoteric. They're not far-fetched. Lojong is very practical. It's very accessible. It's portable. It's a portable practice. And that's not to say that our practices now is sitting zazen, listening to teachings, reading texts, talking with friends is not important. Of course, all valuable. But it's another method. It's just another method. If it works for you, fine. If not, fine. So Lojong also asks us to, as we're practicing it, it gives us a way to measure the success of the training. Are we getting softer and gentler? Do we feel more compassionate? Do we feel more peaceful and content? Are we engaged in relationships with more love, kindness, openness, kind speech? This is what Lojong practices are leading us to. So we need to develop the courage to face the complexities of life. And Lojong is all about facing adversity. Lojong doesn't for 1 minute say, do this and you'll have an easy life from here on out. But Lojong is saying we're going to experience difficulties until we die, right? And deaths might be even painful and filled with suffering. So why wouldn't you want to use something that will help you deal with that adversity and that difficulty with more equanimity, with more peacefulness? So Norman Fisher said, when we practice, we're essentially caring for the messiness and the entanglements of our life. Because it's not separate from us, right? It goes back to the teaching on the world is upside down. What's appearing, we label what's appearing according to our senses, according to our intellect. But emptiness teachings, wisdom teachings are saying, not so. Read the Heart Sutra. Not so. Even the teachings are empty of inherent existence. That's another talk for sure. So what is Lojong? I want to entice you a little bit because Lojong, this practice, we're going to be studying through Ango. I'm going to be alternating weeks with Baizan, who's going to be the Shuso, the head trainee for this year's Ango practice. So we're going to teach every other week, and Baizan will be teaching something that he's going to bring to all of us, and I'm going to be bringing practical Lojong. So yes, we'll get a foundation, we'll build a foundation of the teachings, but the hope is that we will all start to use it in a way that is alive in our life, that's alive for us in our relationships, so that it's not just words on a page. It's not just dead words. It becomes very vibrant and very alive. And we start to see the changes, like Geshe Cheko's brother, who maybe had absolutely no interest or faith in Dharma. Now, I know that's not what's happening in this Zendo, but we have varying degrees of motivation and interest. So Lojong is actually, it's separated into 7 main points, and Lojong actually means training the mind. And it's training the mind in 7 points. And the 7 points relate to different aspects of our practice. And within each point, there are slogans. There's a total of 59 mind training slogans. And these are the slogans that you could write down and put on your refrigerator, in your car, on your hand. So the instruction, it's a Mahayana practice, because Lojong is comprised of Tonglen, taking and giving, sending and receiving. We're using the medium of the breath to develop compassion, to let go of what we normally hold on to bring in what we normally avoid, what we're afraid of, what we don't like. And that's the meditation part of Lojong, Tonglen. And then post-meditation, we work with the slogans. So there's many points. You know, the first point 1, Norman Fisher calls resolve to begin. You got to start somewhere. Resolve to begin. What does that mean for you, to resolve to begin? And his point is train in the preliminaries. These are the practices that give us some humility and curiosity and interest. So, and there's 4 main parts. I don't have near enough time to go into all of it. We'll unpack this during Ango. So you're very welcome to sign up. And it's going to be an online only on Thursday nights, starting September 11th, and then every other week. Baizan will be teaching the week after that and every other week. So you'll really have an opportunity to do some deep dives during this 3-month training period. So the first point is resolve to begin. You know, we could use this point in everything that we do, right? In the morning, resolve to sit. Resolve to open your book. Resolve to shut your mouth in an argument, right? One of the ways that Geshe Chekawa was so influenced by Lojong, he was kind of rooting around in his teacher's room. And he happened to notice on his teacher's desk this slogan that said, "May I accept defeat and offer the victory to others." And something just caught him. He was so taken by that. May I accept defeat and offer the victory to others? What does that mean? It led him on his search to find out the author of these teachings and took him to the Lojong practices. So there's 7 points of training the mind, and there's also 8 verses of training the mind that we studied a couple years ago that I'll be happy to bring forth in this practice. And, you know, may I accept defeat is all about cultivating deep humility, not knowing, being gracious. Maybe we don't have the answer. Maybe we have the idea of the answer. Maybe somebody else has a better answer. And so we accept defeat and offer the victory with graciousness, not with a revenge fantasy playing in our head. We'll all get you at some point. And that's a Lojong slogan. Don't wait in ambush, right? Do not wait in ambush. Somebody does something to us and we think, I'll be the better person. I'm going to walk away from this argument. But we're stewing about it. Oh, if I had only said this. Now I have the perfect comeback the next time this opportunity presents itself. And then we unleash both barrels. And Lojong's saying, do not wait in ambush. Offer the victory, accept defeat. What does it cost you? Maybe ego gets bruised a little bit? Good. We want ego to be bruised, don't we? We want it to be broken, split apart, lessened, reduced. So the slogans, another way we can think of the slogans, they're mantras for our mind. Zen doesn't work with mantras as much as other lineages of Buddhism do. Of course, we have mantras, but mantra literally, Sanskrit translation is mind protection. It's a protection for our mind. In a moment when we can't do much else, we can call up a slogan. We can think of our breath. We can do something to derail that uncontrolled, untrained, habitual response that just comes out of our mouth, that comes out of our heart without thinking. Lojong is about reducing the reactivity, because the reactivity is based on ego. It's based on mistaken view of the world, based on mistaken view of self and other. You know, that's the default untrained mind, right? Not very inspiring. Based on ego habits for years and years and years and years, eons. So the slogans can serve to be this mantra. The slogans can serve to remind us, don't wait in ambush. If we work with it enough, we have to work with it, we have to practice it, we have to internalize it, we have to make it ours, we have to see how it fits for our life. And that's with all of our practices. Zen practices, Tibetan practices, doesn't matter which, doesn't even really matter just Buddhist practices, all practices that are meant to help us open our heart and expand our mind. We have to be interested to work with it. So, in conclusion, and then we can have some discussion perhaps, we need to reflect on what's primarily important for us in our life. Is it just kind of trimming away some of the rough edges, but we still maintain this solid sense of self, and the way that we do things is always the way that we're going to do things? Or are we interested in eliminating some of those bad habits, unwholesome actions, and engaging in practices that are tried and true? Practices that have lasted for 1,000 years cannot be full of baloney, right? I mean, seriously, that's why we look at the benefits and the lineage and the qualities and we think, it's lasted for so long. All of our ancestors, Zen ancestors, Chinese ancestors, Indian ancestors, all of our ancestors have brought forth this bounty, this gift, waiting for us to harvest it. Or do we just let the fruit rot on the table because we're too busy? So I want to read something that Norman Fisher talked about in the point on transform mishaps into the path, or transform bad circumstances into the path. Tempting to just jump there, right? But we engage in the preliminaries. So one of the slogans, turn all mishaps into the path. Norman Fisher says, at first blush, it sounds impossible. Because what this teaching is asking us to do, transform all adversity into the path of Dharma. All adversity. So Norman Fisher says, how would you do that? When things go all right, we're cheerful. We feel good. We have good spiritual feelings. But as soon as bad things start to happen, we get depressed, we fall apart, or at our very best, we hang on and cope. We certainly do not transform our mishaps into the path, and why would we want to? We don't want the mishaps to be there in the first place. We want them gone as soon as possible. They are certainly not the path. The path is love and light and compassion and joy, right? And so on. But we know that's not true. Yes, that's the path, but it is not the only path that we walk, right? We get slammed with some bad news. We have an illness, or a disease, or a separation, or a loss. We get slammed with bad news and adversity. We're not just practicing to become better at the good things. We're practicing so that our heart opens in those situations as well, that we can maintain equanimity, we can maintain peacefulness. We deal with the problem. Buddhism is not saying, put your head in the sand, run, escape, avoid. Buddhism is saying, stand fast. Stand still, be upright, Face it, be present with it, just as it is. So I hope you'll consider joining us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we also have to consider that our practice, we must also use joy, lightness. If we're starting to get a little too tight, feeling too much energy that's very constricted, let go. Let go. We ask, is this so? Is this what it really is? Is this who I really am? So let me stop and see if anyone has questions online. Just unmute if you have a question, comment. Yes, oh, yes.
So that slogan of transforming mishaps into the path, I have a book and I've been using that because I had a lot of changes in my life. And I don't know if they're like fully transformed, but what I'm experiencing right now though is, or firstly I have this thought that like this transforming is actually takes a lot of effort and energy and and like one after another, and it's like a workout to be present with this. So as a result of this, I feel or experience sometimes that fear of like, I don't want any more mishaps to transform them in the path. So how do I deal, like I do notice that fear, but is the peacefulness, is it like getting rid of that feel? Like how do I go to the next level of like be ready to that transformation so it doesn't take so much effort?
That's a beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking it. And you know, as my way of replying, it might be keep practicing. Really, keep practicing. The fear, you know, as we know, fear, anxiety, depression, all the ways that we look at it are part of the aversion attachment cycle, right? Those are two sides of the same coin. And they're operating all the time. Want this, don't want this. Oh, I don't like feeling fearful. I don't want to feel so anxious. So we're working with it, letting it transform gradually and naturally. But I love what you said about it's a practice. You have to stay with it. You have to work with it. You have to be interested enough in a life without fear, in a life without difficulty. You have to think it's possible. Otherwise, it's not just reserved for the upper stratosphere of Buddhist masters. They practiced, right? They practiced like you and I. We're practicing. Thank you. Beautiful question. Yes, Olga.
Really love the talk, Myogetsu. There's 69 slogans. Are they written in a specific order? The first one being start with the preliminaries, because that's one a day is 3 months. It sounds like a lot of work to perfect or to make it work, along with the other sitting practices that I do, or I'm sure that everybody does.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work, yes. And it's not like we're piling it all on and now we have to accomplish this and move on to something else. It may be that we just simply are inspired or we feel some connection to a slogan, to a part of the practice. Maybe we feel a connection to Tonglen, which is the breathing practice, to develop loving kindness. So we simply do that as our capacity grows. And as the spaciousness of our mind and heart grow, we'll also find there's no discrimination among the practices. Practice one, you practice them all. You practice one wholeheartedly, you practice them all wholeheartedly. Just different methods to get in, right?
It's funny, thinking about the question that Martina asked, it kind of triggered a memory of Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Watson, and a story between them that one day Thomas Watson came in to Alexander Graham Bell, told him that he just botched $1 million deal and was resigning. And Alexander Graham Bell simply said, "Why would I let you go after I just spent $1 million training you?" To me, it's that very simple switch in mindset that it's not failure, it's training. And
Yes, beautiful.
there would, without that, there would be no IBM, because Watson wouldn't have kept going.
Yes. Yeah, I'm reading a really interesting book. It's a compilation of talks by a Zen abbot in, he was at Tassajara, Les Kay, who wrote a book, and his students were so moved by his teishos that they wrote a book called I Had a Good Teacher. He got direct lineage from Shunryu Suzuki, and he wrote a chapter on the honeybee doesn't care whether it picks up nectar on certain flowers or not. It just keeps trying. Oh, this flower's kind of empty. I'll buzz over to the next one. I'll buzz over to the next one. It doesn't get bogged down in I don't have as much. It doesn't get bogged down in productivity, and it doesn't get bogged down in comparison. It just is and does. So, yeah, failure is certainly part of the path.
And for your comment too, I think when you do have days where you just feel full and like you want to do the work but you can't, so you have to just be kind to yourself that day, but not get rid of it, not get rid of the work, but just lower energy that day. Yeah.
That's what Thich Nhat Hanh says, that we have to be gentle, we have to be kind during the course of our training, during the course of our life. Each one of us will have different capacities. Maybe we need more rest at this particular point in time. It's not contradictory to effort and motivation. We know the place that it can slip into laziness, and we know the place that it can slip into apathy. But rest and working according to our capacity is not a contradiction to the training. Thich Nhat Hanh said, be gentle, be still, and go to your breath. Very powerful, simple practice, isn't it? Yes, Gary.
Well, thank you for the talk. I've been practicing for 20 years, and I've always seen the word Lojong, and I never got to it yet. So it's helpful to hear from a master. So coming at it as a new person, my takeaway is over here we're talking about simplicity. Over here we're talking about 59 syllables. How does one reconcile that?
That's a great question. That really is a great question. And it might start with point one, train in the preliminaries. The preliminaries are considering our precious human. There's 4 aspects of the preliminaries regarding our life as precious. Seeing the inevitability of death, the inescapability of suffering, and the indelible action of karma. And so we might decide, I'm going to contemplate that for a little bit. We might decide to contemplate, what is peacefulness? When I feel peaceful and content, what does that look like in my heart, in my world, with others? Yes, we can do the deep dive, but we can also bite off what we feel we can chew at that particular time. And see it as just a slow and steady practice. I know Chris had her hand up, and thank you, Gary. Great question.
I think what I have to say just echoes what you're saying, Diane, and I certainly have worked with the slogans, and I can work with one slogan for months, because once you really start working one of the slogans, it just opens up into lots and lots and lots of learning, watching yourself work with a slogan. So it's not so much that you've got to get through all 59. It's like Diane said, it's sort of like figuring out which ones really speak to you and just sticking with that for as long as it's alive.
Right, absolutely, thank you. That's what we're going to try to do during this training period, or the 3 months period of time, is not to keep it at an intellectual level. Certainly we need some structure, we need some some way to understand the practices, but we're also going to really make it, hopefully make it alive, so that it's just like what Chris, and I know Chris and Robin did this sort of as Sangha friends during the last Ango period. They just sort of checked in with each other. So we're going to do this as a group to just really see what comes alive. And it'll be different. Different slogans at different times for different people. Doesn't matter. Just try. Just try. So maybe one last question online, Robin?
And as you know, I'm crazy about the slogans, so I'm so glad you're doing this. I just love them. And I so appreciate today your setting a context for the study. It was so interesting to hear the background and everything. I just really loved it this morning. And I'm very excited that we're going to be doing this during Ango.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, anything else? All right, awesome. Well, thank you all so very much. Be happy. Yes. That was sweet.
And then we're gonna talk about it before you leave. Yeah, you're always in the way. You two got two chairs away.
So I can write everything down because I don't know this term. So actually I wrote the email and the lady, because it was long email, because I had to like process all of that. And she called me. So now I'm gonna answer the call. Yeah, sometimes it's like easy to get triggered, like, oh, yeah, so like right now. So yeah,
Thank you. It was fun. Hey, I'm looking forward to hearing your talk. I'm so excited.